Earlier this week, the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, or the DIPP, issued guidelines and clarifications on the rules pertaining to foreign direct investment in e-commerce. Now, the highlights of the press note were the definitions of marketplace, also the fact that the press note very categorically states that FDI will be disallowed into inventory-led e-commerce models, while 100% FDI through the automatic route will be allowed in marketplace models. Now, while on the face of it, these guidelines or clarifications actually seem to legitimize the marketplace model, they do also bring into question what happens to companies that have brought in FDI but are inventory-led but follow the single brand route. So, are these restrictions much more onerous than we imagine? Will this actually hurt the e-commerce ecosystem, or will this allow the e-commerce system to flourish further? Those are the questions that we've been hoping to get answers on. Take a look.
The initial reactions to the guidelines that were issued by the DIPP for FDI and e-commerce were positive. Players across the board seemed relieved that there was now sanction of law to foreign investment in marketplaces. Marketplace being defined as an information technology platform run by an e-commerce entity on a digital and electronic network to act as a facilitator between buyer and seller. But experts we spoke to say the clarification simply legitimize existing practices.
If you look at the situation prior to issuing this white paper, I think there was some sort of a chaos in the market. People didn't know as to what is the guideline, what is allowed, what is not allowed. Do we make investments into India with this sort of a model, or what is going to be the future? And once the clarification is given by the government, then general presumption is that it will be retrospective in nature. In the sense, people who have already made investments in this particular model perhaps will be fined.
But as one goes through the 3-page note to the fine-toothed comb, several constraints emerge. The most contentious clause says to qualify as a marketplace, no single seller on the platform must contribute over 25% of total sales. This will force several companies, including Flipkart and Amazon, to review their current structure. There is also a setback for inventory-led e-commerce companies, as the DIPP says they cannot raise foreign funds. So, what are the implications of this on e-commerce players, both big and small, and the ecosystem in general? Let's take up these issues one by one. It's no surprise that the only marketplace to openly cheer the new guidelines has been Snapdeal. Kunal Bell spoke to us immediately after the guidelines were released.
I've always been a firm believer that we have to offer an open marketplace and enable democratization of selling online, and not have single large sellers who contribute to a large percentage of the sales on a marketplace. So at least for Snapdeal, we are very excited that the government recognizes that.
As of today, both Flipkart and Amazon have subsidiaries that easily contribute over 25% to sales. Flipkart, which started operations as an inventory-led model, has over the years been moving towards a marketplace. But WS Retail, an entity owned by Sachin and Vinny Bansal, still remains the biggest seller on the Flipkart platform.
Technically, a lot of their income is effectively coming from different, from the same entities, and that's something which will now have to be restructured, simply because today you are looking at this particular restriction that not more than 25% can be sourced from one particular vendor.
I think it will be fair to say at this point in time that the restriction perhaps may not be retrospective, because it was not known to people at large as to what is going to be the threshold. So the restriction perhaps could apply in a prospective manner.
CNBC TV18 learns from government sources that none of the guidelines issued are retrospective in nature, but a formal clarification is awaited.
Well, if you just replicate this into a brick and mortar mall, if people walk into a mall, the mall may provide certain benefits, but the mall does not give differential pricing to different types of customers who visits different types of shops. Keeping that in mind, this is only a virtual mall. A marketplace, according to me, is a virtual mall. And that sort of a model, again, will not warrant the market player to actually provide discounts from its own pockets so as to attract more customers.
Brick-and-mortar retailers who have long held that deep discounts offered by online players have negatively impacted their business have welcomed this move. But so have smaller online players like Sumant Kasliwal of 20dresses.com.
What has happened is that the customer in turn has got used to these kind of freebies and discounts, the kind of services which these companies give, on the back of huge amount of funding they have received, which not everybody has got. I think this particular clarification has come as shot in the arm. I think a lot of sanity will kind of prevail now. People will talk about more profitability. People will talk about right kind of doing the business in the right fashion.
The DIPP guidelines clearly state that no online retailer who owns inventory and hence the consumer experience from start to finish can raise FDI. This, some players say, is a contradiction to the current norms governing single brand retail, where FDI and e-commerce are both allowed. We caught up with Shivani Podar of Fab Alley to understand the ramifications of this clause on her business.
We've already seen a lot of smaller brands, becoming fairly big within say 2 to 3 years of launch on the online medium. And to stop growth for these brands, for them to not have access to money is going to be a huge deterrent in future.
One option available for ventures like this is to establish a brick-and-mortar presence. But like Shivani points out, this is not easy to do as offline operations tend to be capital intensive.